Hello, my name is MRosales, and today I'm going to talk about how plant diseases can threaten global food security. I'm a professor at Faculty of Agronomy and Natural Resources at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. The outline for today, we are going to address first how plant diseases and food security are related. Then we are going to address the consequence of plant diseases in crop production. Then we will go to the new concept, which is emerging infectious diseases of plants. Then we will follow with some examples of global plant diseases. Also, we will address the challenges in this topic. And I have prepared a question set that is on the last slide that you can use to prepare with some selected readings. We can differentiate those endemic plant pathogens, those that we know them for a while, and probably we can manage pretty well in most of cases because we know a lot about the biological process of the way of living of these pathogens. However, we have also these new and emerging plant pathogens that causes emerging plant diseases. The last ones are the ones that are spreading and in an easier way lately because we know a little bit about them. And also those are the ones that have been exacerbated by changes that are occurring in the context of global warming. This type of diseases are prone to be distributed with a global trade network. We can see some pathogen spillovers to natural environments, and also we see a lot of evolution or emergence of new variants of these emerging plant pathogens. What are the consequences of these new emerging plant diseases, and also those that we know for a while, the endemic ones? Well, in both cases, plant pathogens causes diseases that can affect the normal physiological process that the plants has to perform for a living, to produce fruits, to produce vegetables, to produce roots, to increase the yield, etc. These diseases can be caused by different biotic agents such as fungi, bacteria, nematodes, and viruses, for example. And the consequence of the diseases is that they can retard or reduce plant growth and development. They can decrease yield and also the quality of the products, and also in more extreme cases they can cause the death of the plants or the trees that we are cultivating. The statistic about the losses caused by different plant pathogens reveal that around of the 30% of the crop yield is lost globally by different diseases. This worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And in times where the access to food and quality food is difficult. This type or this amount of losses are very difficult to understand. How we cannot address the management to reduce these losses. Diseases not only causes the direct losses by the reduction in the yield, but they also can reduce the quality and the value of the agricultural products. So, for example, a tomato affected by a pathogen can have a reduced size of the fruits, but also can have a reduced price in the market, affecting finally the farmer's income. Now we will see the characteristic of the pathogen causing infectious diseases of plants and the drivers of the emergence of these pathogens. Well, the concept of emerging infectious plant diseases comes from the field of epidemiology of animal and humans, and is used also in plant pathology. The emerging infectious plant diseases are caused by emerging plant pathogens that have increased its incidence or geographical distribution, or though these pathogens may have changed the host range, meaning that they can infect new hosts. These new emerging infectious diseases may have changed the way they cause diseases, they change the pathogenesis, or they have evolved recently. Lastly, these new emerging infectious plant diseases may have been recently discovered or recently recognized. Unlike these endemic diseases that we know pretty much well the way of management of these diseases, in the case of emerging plant pathogens, they are really difficult to manage because we don't know a lot about their biology, the form they spread, the way they survive. Therefore, it's really difficult to planify and establish good management practices. In that way, they can impact really in a really important form the productivity of agriculture, affecting the accessibility to food in general, fruits and vegetables. At the right side of this slide, you can see a figure that was taken from Anderson et al., where this is a really important article because this is the one that for first time used the concept of emerging infectious diseases of plants. What they did, they took 10 years report of recently discovered diseases or recently reported new diseases of plants and crops. And they categorized the causal agents for each one of them. In figure A, you can see that the most important causal agent of emerging diseases in plants are viruses, with almost 50% of the cases described, followed by fungal plant pathogens and then bacterial plant pathogens. When you address the drivers of these new emerging pathogens causing emerging plant diseases, you can see that the introductions in letter B are the main driver of the emergence of these pathogens. Introductions means are caused by movement of humans, the international global trade, or people moving from one country to another. Those are the main drivers of the emergence of new pathogens, followed by some alterations in weather conditions or variation in farming techniques. Then they address the three main groups of pathogens that are causing this type of diseases, and they see what are the drivers for each one. And you can see that in the case of bacteria, the main drivers for the emergence of diseases caused by bacteria are in first place the introductions, with a 56% of the cases, and some modifications in weather conditions for 44% of the descriptions. When you go for diseases caused by fungi, the distribution is in first place for modification of weather conditions as a driver of the emergence of these diseases, followed by introduction and then modification of farming techniques. In the case of viruses, It's really important that the most important driver, the main driver of these diseases caused by plant viruses, are the introductions. And here, as I mentioned before, the introductions are most of them caused by effect of the human population, meaning global trade, movement of people, movement of seeds. In that sense, the movement of seeds or the production of seeds in different locations can also be responsible for the emergence of new pathogens. Then, being introductions the main drivers with 71% of the cases, it follows changes in vector population, which is important for plant viruses because vectors move viruses between plants. And in this case, they reach 16% of the reports for these new emerging infectious diseases. So we can see here, therefore, that viruses are the main causal agents of these emerging infectious diseases, and that introductions and also alteration or modification of weather conditions along with different farming techniques are the principal drivers of the emergence of this type of pathogens. We are going to review now some important plant diseases that are considered as emergent plant diseases in a global context. The first example that I have here on the slide is the threat that is causing fungal plant pathogens in the production of banana. In this case, the emergence of these new pathogens is related to reduced genetic background of the host. The pathogen is Fusarium oxysporum, which has some specific race 4, that causes the disease known as Panama disease of banana, that is threatening the banana production because affects the plant. This new race of Fusarium evolved from Asia, and it moved from different countries in Asia, and then faced the Americas. And it was described by the first time in 2019 in Colombia. This was the first report of these pathogens out of Asia, and in the last 5 years, this pathogen has spread in Central America, affecting the cultivar Cavendish, which is the main cultivar and probably the only one that is grown all around the world where banana can be grown. So this is what we call a monoculture. There is only one variety that is spread in all the producing areas of banana, and we have a new pathogen that affects this genotype of banana. So if we don't have heterogenic genetic background in our production, it's really easy to threaten the production because all the plants producing banana this time are susceptible to new pathogens. In that sense, this new disease is threatening the production in Asia, Africa, Central America, which are the major banana production areas in the world. Therefore, the availability for banana may be greatly reduced in the following years. So there are many strategies going on at this moment. People are looking for genetic improvement of banana by traditional breeding and also by using biotechnology tools which usually gives solutions in a long-term process. They may have some advantages, but for now, still is a threat. This pathogen, this Fusarium oxysporum race 4, is a threat to the banana production. The next case is a threat that is affecting the cassava production in East Africa. What happened is that in Africa evolved two different new diseases caused by viruses. One is called cassava mosaic begomoviruses, and the other is cassava brown stripe virus. These are the name of the viral agents. And the disease that they cause, they have results in severe pandemics that are continually spreading over the region. And they cause mainly, they affect the root level, so the quality of the cassava that they can harvest is really low and almost impossible to consume. These viruses can cause also severe stunning, reduce the size of the plants, leaf deformation. I mentioned root necrosis. And all this symptomatology can lead to a substantial yield losses. The emergence of this pathogen has caused over 1 billion losses in East Africa, and the yield has reduced by 30 million of tons annually, which is really impacting the accessibility to food in this area of Africa. So this is also a problem that is being faced by improvement of the plants, by by biotechnology tools, and also by traditional plant breeding. The third example that I want to bring to you for an emerging plant pathogens is the threat caused by introduction of a bacteria in a new geographical area. The example that I have is the bacterium Xylella fastidiosa, which is a really well-known pathogen in the American continent, and from here it spreads to Europe. This bacterium in the Americas causes diseases on grapevines, citrus, and coffee. This is a bacteria that usually likes to use as host woody plants. That's why grapevines, citrus plants, and coffee are the main hosts described in America. In the case of Europe, this bacterium was widespread in the Mediterranean region, where it's causing significant damage to numerous cultivated and spontaneously growing plants. Specifically, the description of this bacteria in Italy has been related to what is called olive leaf scourge, that you can see in the pictures in the left side. You can see some affection or necrotic symptoms on leaves, also in roots, and you see in letter C rapid quick decline of the trees. These trees are dead really easily and quickly. And the problem with these bacterial diseases, especially Xylella fastidiosa, is that there are not resistant genes available for plant breeding, and the management of these bacteria are really difficult. Therefore, the main tools that we have to manage this type of diseases is by preventive introduction. What happened after it was officially confirmed for the first time in Italy in 2013 is that from there, in a 6-year period, we know at this time that this bacteria is present in France, Switzerland, Germany, Spain, and Portugal. So it's spreading really fast in the continent, in Europe. And the problems is that can reach different hosts, different woody hosts, where the production of fruits, wine, grapevines are very important. So this is a really important new emerging plant pathogen. In this case, a bacterial plant pathogen. The last two examples that I want to bring today are cases from Chile, where I brought them here because it's part of the work that we are doing in our laboratory. Two different PhD students are understanding the emergence of these two pathogens. The first example, to the left of the slide, you can see the emergence of a new virus. Excuse me. In this case, it's a new virus that is vectored by a thrips, which is an insect. But the problem is that this virus we have discovered is also transmitted by seeds. Then, if this virus is transmitted by seed, as we know already, this may affect the seed production in Chile, and Chile is very important in the international scenario for seed production. You can see the symptoms of this virus here. It can cause breaking of the colors in pepper. This virus is also present in tomato. Here in the center we have necrotic symptoms in pepper, and also in the third figure or picture. The problem is this virus emerged in the north of Chile, in the border with Peru. This virus was described in Peru by the first time, and then moves to Chile, probably with movement of people. Arica, the region where we are working with this pathogen, is in the border with Peru. But now this virus has spread up to the center of Chile, and you consider that Chile is really long. It's a long way to reach the center of our country. And also, as I mentioned, not only affecting pepper, but also tomato. We don't have resistant genes available for plant breeding, so at this moment, we need to understand a little bit more about the biology of the pathogens and look for some strategies of the management of the insect vector. The other example of the emerging plant pathogen in Chile is the pictures of the potatoes on the right side of the slide. The emergence of these pathogens, the pathogen is called Spongospora subterranea, really difficult name. This is a protozoan, which we knew it was present in the Andes, in the area where potatoes are grown in all South America. We knew about the presence then in the south of Chile, but it wasn't a really important disease until potato crops incorporated irrigation in the scheme of production. What happened? That the rain is not longer enough to water the potato plants, so they need to irrigate them, and this irrigation causes the emergence of this disease, which is called powdery scab of potato, as an important new and re-emergent plant disease. You can see the lesion on the skin of the potatoes, the powdery scab. The powdery comes from here. In this tissue you have a spore of, or unit of, different units of spores of this protozoan that can stay in the field and the soil for years and decades. So it's really difficult to manage. We don't know this varietal susceptibility until now, and the condition in the soils that are allowing a better multiplication of this pathogen. So We have here two different cases. In the case of the new virus in the north of Chile, is the emergence of a disease because of an introduction. And in the case of powdery scab of potato, is the emergence of a new pathogens due to a modification of the cultural practices. So what are the challenges that we have with these new emerging plant diseases? I think we need first to foster a research agenda to manage all these emerging plant pathogens, but considering some interdisciplinary work, we need to study these interactions, plant, pathogen, and environment at different levels and with different perspectives. We need to understand pathogen biology. We need to detect the pathogens really early. We need to understand the evolution of these pathogens and also the way they spread, and probably we can model the spread of this pathogen in different scenarios. So all this research need to be addressed in an interdisciplinary way, and also in a long-term process. At this moment, we have projects which are really short, 3 years at most. 5 years are exceptional, and I think we need to think about these challenges and the need of research in a long-term process. The other challenge is related to the need of new surveillance and monitoring systems. We know that each country has its own regional plant protection agency that has to monitor these new diseases, but usually those are not well connected with the academy where research is done. We need to share the data in between countries. We need to probably to be more open with the data we collect, because at this moment it's really difficult for a country to recognize that it has a new pathogen, because that has some economical consequences in terms of global trade. But if we do not report the emergence of this new pathogen, we can risk not only our production but also our neighbors, and also or even they can affect some countries really far from the place of the emergence of the pathogens with this global scenario. Then we need to develop some models that can help to understand the risk of the presence of these pathogens, especially if we consider the new scenarios that are faced in the context of a global change, meaning global warming, some extreme consequence in the weather. So we need to understand and have tools to modulate this and predict the potential of a spread of these new pathogens, and to be prepared for the possible appearance of these new diseases. And finally, I think we to do better extension and technology transfer, especially for smallholders. We need to have more tools to identify these new plant diseases, because if we take time to identify these new pathogens, these new diseases, the impact in agriculture and the availability of food is going to be bigger. We need to have more people dedicated to extension and people that can connect the research with the growers, especially, as I mentioned, for smallholders in developing world. Finally, I want to leave you with the following questions so you can discuss in the class. The first one is, how do climate change and global trade networks contribute to the increased incidence and spread of these emerging plant diseases and the pathogens that causes these diseases? The second one is about the socio-economic impacts of these new plant diseases pandemics on global food security. Maybe you can consider the impact in developing countries versus more developed ones. And third one, what is the role of innovation in disease surveillance and pathogen detection, and how these technologies can prevent the outbreaks of these new plant diseases. And the last one is, how can international collaboration and data sharing be improved to monitor in a better way these new plant disease pandemics that we can face, or we are facing already in some cases. So for that, I have suggestion of 3 articles. The first one is Plant Disease, a growing threat to global food security. This is an editorial, but I consider the introduction, it helps to put in context all the problematic that are blended in this concept of emerging plant diseases. The second one is the article that I mentioned, that was the first one to use the concept of emerging infection diseases of plants. It's my favorite one in the topic, probably the one that motivates me to work on emerging plant pathogens. And the last one is the persistent threat of emerging plant diseases pandemic to global food security. It's a very modern article that has a view that is really well integrated different perspective. So I hope that you enjoy the reading and that you can have a really interesting discussion. Thank you very much for having me here today, and it was my pleasure. Bye.